Hello! It's hard to dance to Halloween music, isn't it? And what is this you're wearing? A Betsy Ross costume, you say? I don't think so. Thank you so much, Druid. So, happy Friday Eve! So, Tomaneus is trying to wear my most recent acquisition, which is the bicentennial Barbie dress. Is this not fabulous? I mean, it's so cute. And then look on the back of it, it's even got this. Well, it came unbuttoned. It's got this little itty bitty button and a little string hook. Once you tell people that you are searching for bicentennial stuff, it starts rolling in nonstop. So it's pretty exciting. I have talked to several quilters who are a generation above me, and they don't think I'm crazy for studying the bicentennial era, but they're all kind of uninterested. And they're more than happy to like pass along their fabric scraps and anything that they've got. And I just keep like in fact, one person, a dear friend, who said to me yesterday, I get it. I understand what you're doing, because when I started researching back in the 80s, women who had made quilts in the 30s and 40s were still alive, and, that they had access to them and were able to talk to them. And so it's kind of the same thing. I mean, if you look at the 80s and you subtract 50 years, you get the Depression era. If you look at 2024 and you subtract 50 years, you get the 70s and the bicentennial and all that. So I feel quite justified in my research. And I mean, it's kind of like a perfect time because people still look at this. I think the bicentennial stuff in terms of like collectors has been and is more so becoming kind of sought after, because I'm seeing things pop up. Like I look at eBay all the time just to see what's out there, and take screenshots. But I see things people are trying to sell for a lot of money. And then I also see people who are selling things where like, I found this in the garage or the attic and it's crap, but maybe somebody will buy it. So it's very interesting. It is an interesting time period to be looking at. So on Monday, I had mentioned some of the fabrics that I've been coming across, and I forgot to bring them to my desk. So I brought 3 of them today. And a pet snake or a marmot? Well, I suppose I could probably dig out a Barbie. I'm pretty sure, I personally, as a child, only had like 1 or 2 Barbies. I don't even know if my mom still has them. Oh, a ferret. I'm sure I could find a Barbie to model this. But also it would be funny for a ferret. But yeah, I think this one, there's another one, another costume, because when I got this, I looked them up, and there's one that's got little 76s all over it. And I think it's got, I think it's like a little skirt and a little jacket and like some boots. I mean, very 1970s, like a kind of outfit, but very bicentennial. And I think there might have been an outfit for Skipper too. So yeah, fun stuff. But let me switch cameras. Hopefully I set everything up. Hopefully it's behaving. My microphone is doing a weird thing. And I have an emergency mic in the wings in case, anything happens. So this is very cool. This is kind of a large scale. See, my camera's going the other way. But what you might expect for this bicentennial imagery: cannons, horses, Minutemen, and of course 76s. So this is, I mean, you can see, I don't know if that's showing up very well, but you can see like this is a very like a sheer fabric. I'm assuming this is the kind of stuff, it was probably meant for like curtains or something. I feel like that's what a lot of these things that I'm finding, outside of the fabric companies. Hey, Mara Dim, you can practically hear Schoolhouse Rock. Exactly. I'm just a bill. Yeah, so anyway, I feel like that's what most of these things were. They were kind of like home deck kind of things, because they're kind of a sleazy fabric. They're not, super nice. And this definitely feels like it's probably cotton, but I do know sometimes these ones that are this kind of sleazy fabric are like, they're like a poly cotton, so... But anyway, if you're going to study the 70s, you got to get comfortable with polyester. And then this one is actually one of my favorites. Check this out. So this one is, and it's kind of like, it's almost like on Osnaburg. I don't know if you know what that is, except it's very white. Osnaburg is usually like kind of a brownish or tannish color. In Osnaburg, I guess it's kind of a loosely woven, like a cotton fabric, and my mom used to use it, I think, like as backings for things. It's got purposes, but so this is also pretty sheer. And guess what, Mara Dim? It's flocked. This isn't just printed on. It's furry. So I don't know. I'm sure it's not coming up particularly well on the camera, but this is it's fuzzy. It's flocked. So also, a wonderful example of the 70s flocked fabric. But yes, I really love this one too. I think it's so cute because it's meant to look like little cross stitches, and the guy riding on the horse, I don't know, he's kind of got, that might be a hat, that might be, I don't know if it's kind of looking like I don't know if he's supposed to be a Native American on a horse. I don't know, because it's got this kind of weird. But I mean, this little flower I think is very cool. And then you have this Betsy Ross type, and of course the 76, and then butterfly. Well, that was oddball, but yeah, it's this macaroni. Hey, Kate. Yeah. I mean, it's cool, and I like flocked stuff too. I feel like when I was a kid, I had to like rub my fingers against flock stuff until it was worn, threadbare. And then this is the last one. I've had this one for quite a while. This is Eagle and Bell. Very, very 1970s. And this one is definitely cotton. So I think there's like, I don't know if I measured this out. I could be mixing this up with something else I have, but I want to say there's like 4 or 6 yards of this here. So I could make my own full-length Barbie dress out of this. Oh my goodness. So that's the fabric update. Yesterday I went to a really fun quilt study out on the eastern shore of Maryland. It takes me about 2 hours to drive there, but it's well worth the drive. I do have to cross the Bay Bridge, which I don't like, and the Conowingo Dam. If you know this area, it's just what you have to do when you cross over, into the and not the Conowingo Dam. I'm sorry, that's north of here. Now what did I cross over? The Severn River. That's not a bad one. But anyway, there's lots of bridges and things around here, and they dam a lot of the rivers, and so you're always crossing everything, and they make me nervous. I don't know. You think all the infrastructure's safe until that situation with the Key Bridge in Baltimore City. That was tragic and just awful. So every time I cross a bridge, I'm going like, ugh, I hope I don't end up in the drink. But anyway. Once you cross the bridge, it's all, kind of alternates between farmland and little clusters of shopping centers. So the farmland part is a super nice drive. And yesterday was glorious, you guys. Oh my gosh. It was warm yesterday for October, in my opinion. It was, I think, 80. Today is a little bit cooler. Oh, this glorious weather. I just, I always talk about this. Like, we get just a handful of these days a year. And, yeah, so after this, I think I'm going to go outside for a little bit. Today, I managed to get the mail, and I was scurrying around working on some stuff. So just spend a little bit of time outside. But, so the quilt study, I have a couple of pictures that I know I can show because I asked for permission. And we'll probably show them on, Quilt Nerding, because at least one of them pertains to one of the books we've read. So hopefully you guys will be able to see that. But it's just always a fantastic, to see quilts and hear other people's stories about them. And this is the one I took. I have not had this one hanging up yet, and I'll be honest, after I got it, I opened it once and then folded it back up. I got it at an estate auction. So it was an online auction, but it was an estate sale, and it was about an hour for me. So it was not a big deal to drive down there, and I got some other textiles. This was about a year and a half ago. And this one, I always like to tell the story because I tend not to find these amazing things. I feel like other people do. People walk into a Goodwill and they're like, oh, look, I bought this, blah, blah, blah for $5. And it turned out to be, ancient Ming Dynasty, and it's worth $1 million. I don't have those experiences. But in this case, I did. I went to this auction. So I was bidding on this auction, and I was trying to make it worth my while. I didn't want to spend a lot of money, but, always on a budget. But I wanted to make sure that I didn't just like win one thing, because then that's like it's an hour drive. So I kind of bid on a few things, and I ended up winning a quite decent amount of things and not a lot of money. I think just by the nature of the way that the auction company had listed things, I think people were maybe not interested or willing to take a shot. And I was, because I could tell what some of the things were. And I'm like, you always feel a little guilty. You're like, take advantage of this because they don't know what they have. This quilt was the very last picture in the auction catalog. And you can see the back of it is kind of this paisley kind of, it's not chintz, but it looks like chintz. It's kind of one of those all over prints. Probably older than I thought it was, but definitely older than I thought it was. But anyway, that was all that showed. This quilt was folded up. I mean, literally kind of like just crumpled in a ball. And I could tell from, I didn't even have a close-up picture of it really, but I could tell it looked like it was tied the way it was kind of puffy, and it just looked like a ball of garbage. But for $1, I thought, I'm going to take a chance on it. If it turns out to be utter garbage, I mean, $1. Who, is going to complain about losing $1? And I figured, worst case, I could like throw it away. But I was thinking, it probably could be something that I could use in the car to pad, other better purchases. So I get there and I looked at it, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, this is good. This is really good. And I knew that the fabrics were old. And my guess in looking at it was it's probably made turn of the century. I think it was probably, I get the colors, of course, and then this is a medallion layout. I never really thought about it that way. I just kind of thought of it as like super scrappy. But I realized that the way I have it hanging and from the distance, it's really hard to tell. But I think you should be able to tell this right here is definitely the center medallion. And then, you've got these concentric sections around it. And it's kind of odd. It's not necessarily, like, it's scrappy. That's kind of the point. It's not like a perfect, well thought out, but I still think it's well thought out because, they wanted to make this medallion thing. So again, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, this red and blue, there's a lot of polka dots. And that was the reason why I took it, is because our theme, because usually this quilt study has a theme, and it was polka dots in quilts. So, again, turn of the century, I thought. And I always feel like I estimate things like that, I'm like, I don't have something that's that old, I'm not pulling in these 19th century quilts. I thought it could even be like the 20s maybe. Well, I get it there. I spread it out and they're all like, oh, the other quilt I brought, which is actually, I know, 1870s, 1880s, they were kind of like, oh, pretty. This one though, somebody pointed out several fabrics in this one that are probably like 1860s, maybe before. So I was like, oh, okay. It's only one or two. I think there's one up here, and then there's like one just over here. And sorry for the way I had to fold it, but they're not like anything super interesting. But I was a little bit surprised, to be honest. Really, for the most part, I mean, there's some shirting type fabrics in here, which I know are generally turn of the century, like Gibson Girl era, the shirtwaist. They used a lot of in that era, 1890s to 1920s, you definitely see a lot of shirtwaist type fabrics. But there's so much plaid and polka dots and gingham and stuff in here. Those are fabrics that are really hard to date. So, I looked at it and I was like, it can't be that old, but it is. And so, looking at everything, all of it together, it obviously was a scrap bag situation. And, there are some fabrics in there that had been in the scrap bag for a long time, is what I'm guessing. So I still think it was probably constructed turn of the century, thereabouts. It's tied, and the ties are wool. It's been washed a few times because the ties are sort of balled up, but and it's got significant damage along the edges. You know, you can see it's, if I can pull this up high enough for you to see, but you know, it's got it's got the insides coming out. But you know, it's a pretty fun quilt to study. And what I was thinking, this is truly keeping quilts out of the landfill, because I think if I hadn't bought this quilt, because it was in an estate sale, and generally the family is needing to get things out of the house, it probably would have gone to the landfill, is my guess. So I feel like I did a good thing. Provenance on this one, no. Unfortunately, there was no information about it. Now, the other quilt that I got in the same auction did have a little piece of paper pinned to it that said it was made by grandmother Barbara. And I do have the name of the people whose the property was. So I think I can do a little bit of research and really pin it down and kind of figure out, well, whose grandmother Barbara was it? I just haven't had time to do that. And, you know, I kind of like the low hanging fruit research, you know, like, for those of you that saw, Jill and I on Tuesday night and then our thing on Sunday, the people that I researched from her box under the bed, those were easy people, because you had first and last names, you had general date, like kind of a tight date range, and then I had addresses, like complete addresses. So those were really easy. I like those kind of research projects. So yeah, that was my this week. Yeah, I saw some really beautiful quilts yesterday. Don't have permission to share many of them yet. And, you know, there's a couple of them I know I will absolutely, I'm not even going to ask, because I know that they're, the people that shared them are people that are doing like quilt study projects, and they would not want their pictures out there, because, you know, they're either writing a paper or coming up with a lecture or something like that. And I'm the same way. I understand. But I'll be honest, it's the quilt study group kind of has a blanket rule of no social media unless you individually speak to each person. And of course, I made the mistake of saying, hey, you know, who has the social media objections? Because I know that they do. And I respect that. I would never want to share something that, you know, somebody had an issue with it sharing. But I was stopped, and it's like, no, you have to talk to each of them individually. And I'm like, well, I won't have time afterwards because they all split. I don't have all of their email addresses. And if I go up to each one of them and ask for their email addresses, they might as well just tell me right then, yes or no. So, but I guess what I would put out there as a blanket statement, my stance on social media. I understand people, you know, have issues with social media. I very much understand. And anybody who is, you know, firmly saying I don't want any pictures of my stuff on social media, and I'm including this stream as social media. You know, I lump it all in together. Anything that's appearing publicly on the internet, and this is, you know, not behind a paywall. Anybody can watch this video. So I understand 100%. But here's the rub: many of the quilt studies that I have been to will say something to the effect of, well, when I was looking through my collection for a quilt that meets, you know, today's study topic, and like ours yesterday was dots or polka dots. When I went to, it was the color blue. There was one with stripes. So it's usually like a very broad category, but sometimes you really do have to look, because I honestly don't have a lot of quilts that have polka dots, like prominently. I have some scrappy quilts that might have a few little pieces of polka dot fabric, but I was looking for something that I have that had, you know, a lot of predominant polka dots. And so this one met the bill. But what people will say is, I was trying to find a quilt, you know, that really, you know, met those, met the theme. And so I was going through things and I found this one and I totally forgot I had it. So I'm thinking to myself, well, obviously you're not using that quilt for quilt study. You're not, you know, probably doing any kind of lecture on that quilt. And my guess is if you forgot you had it, it probably wasn't worth a lot of money. you know, because I know like dealers, they have their showstoppers and also ones they don't want everywhere. My theory on it is, if you watermark things, because I know people are trying to keep others from stealing their images and doing things with them. if you watermark your images, why wouldn't you want them out there? I want people to see quilts. Exactly, Making and Musings. My dear friend, you are absolutely right. That was where I was going with this. Because every time you put this shutter on things, oh no social media. Younger people are on social media. You have to meet people where they are. This is why I go to the quilt studies. I'll be honest with you. I love them. I have lots of fun. But I was so tired yesterday. I did nothing yesterday. I drove to the Eastern Shore. I hung out for 3 hours. I drove home and I was exhausted because that is just how I am. I prefer small groups of people. And this was a group of like 25. That's a lot of people. I prefer small groups of people or this kind of interaction that I can manage. So, but I want to connect with these people. I want to be part of these studies. So that's why I make a point of going. And of course, there's the people there that I'm friends with that I love to see. And often these quilt studies are the only time I really get to see them. So I meet them where they are. And I really wish they would meet us where we are within reason. Again, I'm not asking like, oh, put your whole collection online. I understand. I get it. But when I can only show the things I have and the things that, our friend Jill has, or, just the limited number of things, it's hard to get people interested. It really is. Because they only see like this one thin slice of, my collection or my things, what I'm studying. And they don't get to see like what else is out there. And, I hope that the stuff I have, because it's kind of oddball and it's interesting, and, I'm not paying thousands of dollars for my quilts because I don't have that kind of money. So I'm hoping to inspire people that are my age and younger, to get into this if they're interested and to study quilts. And yes, there is so much out there. So to make the point and kind of, again, educate people, because there is so much out there. And it's hard for me to educate people if I don't have anything to show them, And, I've really tossed around and tried things. And I would really love to do like an online quilt study. Kind of the way the Six Know-It-Alls do. They have their Facebook group, and it's private, but anybody can join it. And it's really fun to look at all that stuff. I would like to have something like that where we can get more in depth with just a handful of those quilts, instead of just, what people do on that Facebook group is, they're just throwing out examples of the topics. But I would love to be able to do like, let's get the quilt and let's look at this fabric, take a picture of it. We have the tools in our arsenal. Is it equivalent to being able to touch the quilt and be with it in person? No, it's never going to be that great. But our cell phones can take super pictures, and it's possible. And yes, Barb, perfect example. How are we supposed to find the lost quilts? Like I'm saying, this, and I know it is a junky quilt. It's not in great condition, but it's worth studying because of the fabric. And there's a lot that this quilt can tell us about, fabric and just, it's interesting because there's a lot to talk about with it. So yeah, and that's what's disappointing to me about, the kind of the blanket no social media statement. So that said, I do know how to contact a few of the people, and I'm going to, just to say, can I show this one quilt that you showed, because it's so amazing to me and it's really cool. And again, like, I'm not going to ask, like, one person brought what I would consider their showstopper quilt. Like, in fact, I think they said this might be the best quilt I own, which is a lot coming from this particular person, because I know she's a scholar and a long-time collector. So for her to say, I have just brought my best quilt to show you guys, that's the showstopper. And I also know she does research, around the topic and the maker and all that. So I would never ask her if I could, take a picture and show that quilt, because, that's like stepping on somebody's potential, income and their academic track. I don't ever want to do that. I don't want to mess that up for somebody. But anyway, I'm putting it out there as an open letter to my friends and loved ones in the quilt community. If, like, open up the purse strings a little bit as far as your quilt wealth. I promise you nothing bad is going to happen to your quilts if you're willing to show them. And, they don't have to be the ones you're studying. They don't have to be the ones you're lecturing about or writing papers about, but just to show, because the problem is, and I mean, I will be candid with the conversation that Jill and I have, which is, hey guys, one day you're going to be dead and it's coming soon, and do you want your scholarship to just be lost and all of your quilts just, brushed to the side because you didn't take the time to educate the next generation? And I try to tactfully say those things to people. Like, I'm never going to walk up to some, quilt friend in their 70s or 80s and say, you know what, you're going to be dead soon, so share. I never want to do that. But, I have had some of the conversations. I mean, like the bicentennial studies. One of our friends who, is around often, I did say to her, like, some of the women that were involved in these bicentennial projects are already gone. They were elderly women when they got involved in the 70s. But some of the younger women that started quilting in the 70s are still here. I mean, my mom is an example. So I want to capture all of that before, these people are too old, too tired, gone. And we can't do that if they're not willing to share. So anyway, open statement, public service announcement. Hopefully I'll get some folks coming around. Anyway, so today I have something very exciting. You may have noticed when I showed you the fabrics, I have something on top of my desk. I have not purchased a sewing basket in a while, but it's something I used to do often. I would purchase these big sewing basket, just junk lots, and about half the stuff would be like, ooh. Few things are like, well, we're just going to put that right in the trash. But I have found so many interesting things, and it's a lot of it is people don't know what they have, don't care what they have, just don't want to deal with it. Or, are just don't, like whatever, they just want to get rid of it. So also what I have found, a lot of dealers, especially with sewing things, and I'm sure it happens with other types of like collectibles, but I think with sewing things, they will buy a bunch of stuff at auctions and estate sales and all that stuff, and they'll end up with things that individually have some value, but they don't want to deal with it, because it's like a $3 value or a $5 value, and so they dump it all in one box and they say, we'll sell it for this lot. I had been getting those for a while. I could always find like some really great sewing baskets. Like the basket itself was awesome, and that's what the person was selling. And they would just be like, you can have the basket for a good price if I can, leave the junk in it and you just take that. And I'm like, oh, sure. That hasn't happened to me in a long time because I feel like people caught on to that. But I got an opportunity, and I can tell you, I probably paid as much in shipping as I did for this lot, but it's worth it. Also the seller, and I would share the seller with you, but they're through Mercari, and it's impossible. If there is some easy way to share a Mercari link, I wish somebody would tell me, because I often will just have to, like, if I'm going to share something with Jill or with my mom or something, I just have to take a screenshot because I can't figure out how to, like, Mercari doesn't have an easy share link the way a lot of sites do. In any event, this seller, I've never seen something packaged so nicely. This box is big, and let me heft it real quick so you can see. This is the box. I'm pretty sure it's a sterling silver box, like your flatware, sterling silverware. I'm pretty sure that's what this is for. I think it has some divisions in it. I honestly have not really looked through it yet. I checked to make sure nothing was major broken, which it was not. They had this thing wrapped. They had these plastic corners on it. These are the things, when you buy like stereo equipment or some kind of big electronic, they put these things on the corners to keep the, corners from being dinged. And so that was what was on here. The box itself that they put it in, they had egg cartons, literal egg cartons on the bottom with the box sitting on top. I was like, these people know what they're doing. I gave them big kudos on the site for like perfect. This is a perfect, transaction here. This was the most fantastic, packaging ever. These people deserve it. Yeah, Mardim, I feel like, yes. Now, this could definitely be for something else, but just the look of the box, and it's got this horrible green flocking, Kate. This horrible green flocking inside. I just feel like that's what it is. I could be wrong. I could really be wrong. Once we get to the bottom of this, we might find out it's for something else. But my grandmother had a similar box from the flatware she inherited. And I want to say like the flatware itself took up part of the box. But then again, it was like there was a big open space for like the big serving things. So it really wasn't as much stuff as it kind of looked like. So I don't know. Yeah, it does. That's to me like what it looks like it's for something. So this is what they put in it. Let's get to it because I'm dying. I had to come home yesterday and I looked at the box and I was like, no, I'm going to unbox it online because everyone loves this. So I have to share the fun. All right. Okay, so here we go. The box. And yes, they also have lots of recycled packaging, which I appreciate. Like you guys, it's treasures. So one thing I do know in these kind of boxes, sewing boxes and things, you're gonna find weird things. And that's okay. Because I mean, like, these are hair combs. No thank you. But I mean, look what's in here. Besides some broken hair combs, there's some kind of little, it looks like a little flag or something. First I thought maybe it was for darning. It's just the weird stuff you find. So anyway, hair combs. No thank you. Now this is interesting. This is a, there was something written on there. This is like a giveaway, right? So this is Supreme Liberty Life Insurance, Home Office Chicago. Red-headed woodpecker. And look, it's got hairpins. So instead of a sewing implement, they gave away hairpins or bobby pins. I've never seen those before, but that's pretty cool. You know, it doesn't all have to be sewing. Sometimes it's just fun to have things. And you see, all this stuff is packaged. So that's why I'm saying, like, I think it came out of, somebody's lots of stuff. Oh my goodness, look at that. I know what that is. So here's mending wool. Sock mending wool. Look at this. Button art. Now this... Oh, it's taped shut. But look at that. She's a little creepy, but also pretty cool. It's like a little bit of feather, and then the button, and it has a little mouth and nostrils drawn on it. And then the rest looks like just little felt things. This kind of stuff was popular, like in the 50s and 60s. I know. Florence Pito, she used to make little things like this. She did stuff with postage stamps too. So that's pretty cute. Did you ever have one of these? Yeah, she does look like a suffragette. You're right. The purple, right? What were their colors, like purple and white or purple and gray? I had many, many of these. Typically... Oh, this isn't one of them. But the little feet would have a sticker. They were sticky. A warm fuzzy. Is that what they were called? I remember having a few of them. And look, it's got its little antenna. I love it. Now this is the kind of thing you find and you're like, oh, what junk? But no, this is things I love. So he's gonna go, or she, it's pink. It's gonna go right here on my desk. Okay. Speaking of pink and blue, did you guys know? I'd heard of this before, of course, but I'd forgotten about it until recently. That until like the 1930s, 1940s, pink was for boys and blue was for girls. And the idea behind that is pink is kind of a diminutive form of red, and red was considered a manly color. And blue is the color of the Madonna's shroud. So that was considered like, you know, the ultimate female blue. But then during the Great Depression, they decided they needed to drum up some funds, the department stores and whatnot. So they switched it. They just started campaigning for pink to be for girls and blue to be for boys. It kind of backfired a little bit because it was the Depression. So people didn't want to spend that kind of money. However, once the war was over, in the 50s, I guess, late 40s, early 50s, they went whole hog on this pink and blue thing. Now, is this the absolute truth? I don't know, but I've heard the same story several times. So, and people that are like old enough to kind of have been around then, confirm that. So it's interesting, you know, and you think about, I think about in the 80s, like when pastel colored Oxford shirts were popular, and I guess maybe those might have come out in the 60s too, but they were popular, and it was always like, oh, you know, the guys that wore the pink ones, oh, you know, and I'm thinking now, well, that used to be the color for boys, so. Needlebook. I have one of these, but it's a different, the owl face is different. I think it's smaller and it has some kind of advertising around it. So this one's pretty cool. And then there's a couple more. Super Value, I'm guessing this is a grocery store. And then, yeah, Super Value food store. And then here's, this one looks like it's in its original little baggie. And I think probably has all the original needles in it. That's not too shabby. Okay, this. I don't, this, I've never seen one this big. I think there's another one in here. So these are like, I know that I've seen these flags and things. Oh, there's a couple. Like cigar, coming in cigar boxes and things. These flags, I know that they were popular. People made quilts with them. But I'm thinking these must have not been like cigar premiums because these are big. Or maybe they are. I don't know. Does anybody know about these? Hopefully, one of my friends that watches will have some data. Because I have seen these for sale at, I don't know, but not this big. I always see the ones that are like about that big, and those were cigarette and cigar things. But they're flannel. They're kind of flannel. So, they were sold somehow, I know, for, people. The glassine. So, yeah. Oh, well, this is glassine. This paper. And, yes, it used to be used, I guess, quite frequently, right? To hold things as little bags. Nowadays, I think you could probably get candy in them. I know they use them with archival photographs, photograph storage. But yeah, glassine is pretty cool. So look at this. This is a hairnet envelope. I don't think there's a hairnet in it. It doesn't feel like it. No, it's empty. I love stuff like this, though. The packaging. I mean, isn't that wonderful? It was medium brown. Sold exclusively by Scott stores. Okay, so this. Oh, look at this little. So the thimble is missing out of here, but there's supposed to be a thimble in here. and it's a little needle book. So you put the thimble would go in there to hold that out, and it's a little sombrero type, you know, lady sun hat kind of thing. And then inside you've got your needle pages. Isn't that cute? And like I said, you know, $4. All this stuff is priced. This was probably stuff from like somebody's antique mall booth or something like that. I see a lot of that kind of stuff at auctions and for sale. So here's some more needle book. I think there's a few of them in here. Oh, Walgreens. Yeah, that's cool. Walgreens. I've heard that they're starting to close stores down. I heard that about CVS too. Kind of a shame, but so here's a little bag. Tint curtains with Putnam fadeless dyes and tints ecru and gold. Specially prepared for dyeing and tinting curtains. Monroe Chemical Company. Hey, Quiltish. Yeah, you can buy glassine envelopes. Sometimes they're kind of expensive depending on the size. Like I think stuff like this size, you know, that you can buy to put, you know, like baked goods and this stuff is theirs aren't too expensive. But I bought some for some photographic prints for my husband, and those were pricey, like the big 8x10 ones. Okay. Okay, this looks like something that I'm going to have to scan. This says, oh, the District School of Spotless Town. Aid the natural changes of the skin by using hand sapolio, and you will gain or retain a natural beauty that no cosmetics can produce. It is the dainty woman's friend. What on earth? There's all kinds of stuff in here. Oh, goodness. This is like turn of the century. An easy task for young beginners. Homeopathy, rhinoceros, kaleidoscope. This is all spelling words. Oh, goodness. Well, we're going to definitely have to get some scans of that. And then I know I saw this other one. This is a little spot remover thing. Take spots out from fabrics without chemicals and leave no ring. This is Donaldson's cleanser. Look at the list of things it removes. Chocolate, coffee, tea, ice cream, milk, fruit juice, cream, punch, ginger ale. It removes ginger ale stains. I've never done ginger ale to stain terribly. Watermarks, meat juice, gravy, mayonnaise, blood, salad oil, perspiration, olive oil, because that's different than salad oil, grease, Vaseline, road oil, and grass stains. Oh my. That's another one that's going to have to be scanned. That's some good stuff. Yeah, so this one, all of these things were, these little items were listed as $5. They've got little $5 stickers on them. So, like I said, I'm almost positive that a lot of this stuff probably came from like a, you know, an antique mall booth or something that somebody wanted to liquidate. And sometimes you run across it, and I can tell you I paid nowhere near a multiple of all these $5. I don't know, these were just some pieces of paper that once had something else. Oh my goodness, this is enough bobby pins. It's literally heavy. It's got so many bobby pins on it. Here we go. You guys, I knew this was in here and I was so excited about it. This is the Apple measuring tape that I have one, and it's missing the stem. The stem has been pushed down inside of it. So I now have a complete one. And wow. It had a $35, I don't know, the lights are, it had a $35 price tag on it. Yeah, this is a bargain for me. because I don't think I would have bought this for $35 just to get a complete one. That's fun. That's cool. Yay! Okay. What is this? Case Corset Company's aluminum non-rustable corsets. What is in there? Not anything to do with corsets. This is a monogram. Also in a glassine envelope. Looks like it's a B. Let's see. Improves with washing. Okay then. Venetian made. You can see kind of the corner there where the glassine is torn. It's very pretty. I too love a good bargain, Muradin. You know, you never know when you're going to find. Oh, here's some more. Oh my goodness, look at these. That's a very, very delicate in this one. That's like very delicate. Tico Forms. It's like paper. I wonder what you would have necessarily. So it says hand. Oh, you know what? That's what it is. It's padding. So I guess you would put this down and then you'd stitch over it to make the I guess this is a P. Interesting. So now you know how hand-stitched monograms could be so perfect. Yeah, that's cool. I'd never seen anything like that. See, and this is why this stuff is so fun to buy because, you know, would I ever use them or just keep them in my collection? You know, for the most part, I haven't come across anything yet that I would like use. You know, I do have my collection of the needle books and, you know, some of this stuff is just kind of fun to hold on to, you know, until it finds a purpose. Oh, I think there's another one down in here. Oh my gosh, there's more. Look at these. Oh, look at these. I have never seen anything like this. I have to do a little bit of research. But I mean, it makes sense to me how these work. Yeah, so I do have some boxes and things of this kind of stuff. And for the most part, what I do with this stuff, sometimes I include this stuff in my artwork. Yeah, you're right, Druid. With enough monograms, you can use provenance. If you have a name, yeah, you can narrow it down. I think the problem with this, I think this is just such a mishmash of stuff. It's not that it came, you know, it didn't come out of one sewing box. So, but yeah, sometimes I use this stuff. Like I have gobs of name tape and, some of it is kind of old and, you know, I'm thoughtful about what I use. And so some stuff I would just kind of leave as a collection thing. But you know, some of this stuff, it's not really worth that much money, you know, and it's, if I have a purpose I can use it for in my artwork. Or if I know somebody that is using things, yeah. So like, yeah. All right, what to look at next? Gosh, a lot of buttons in here. There's a lot of tape measures. There's another one. I think I just saw one in. There's another tape measure. This is a paper one. This one doesn't look like it's ever been taken out of its American, let's see, new home. America's finest sewing machine since 1860. Yeah, I like the idea of using stuff that, you know, it doesn't have like some kind of special provenance. Oh, this is the Army Navy needle book. If you followed me and Jill when we did our needle book episode of needlework nights, I had one of these. This one's in better condition. Definitely got some bonuses for my needlebook collection. Oh, now these were another thing I saw that I really love. I have some of these from way back. I was using them in some artwork, and they are curtain tie backs. And they have like, they look like a giant thumbtack basically. They have, you'll see they have this little piece of cork back here, and that is covering up an incredibly sharp pin. And what you do is you pull your curtains to the side, and then you just jam this thing into the wall. Like basically a big pin cushion for your curtain. So that's what these are, and they are so cool. Like I said, I was using them for, I'm trying to see if there's another one. I thought there was another one in here. Yeah, here's another one. I was using them for artwork. And this is one too. So they're fun. Let's see. Oh, a nail buffer. This is kind of gross because you know that's somebody's fingernails. But this would have come out of a, a manicure set. It's probably not. This is 20th century, probably early 20th century. Okay, here is a gingham girl. This looks like kind of similar to the little button lady, but isn't she cute? She's very cute. So this looks like, yeah, this is some fabric that's been stiffened and cut, and then it's got some pen and ink on it. And then little bits of felt to make her little, very cute. I wonder, I'm not going to take that out of the package, but maybe it has like a date or something on it. Well, here looks like a letter from Mrs. Marie Thompson Home Decorative Company. And it is empty. So much for that. I'm guessing it had a, yes, I love her too. She is fabulous. Those are the kind of things that I like to, I think I might frame them. You know, I put together like a kind of a shallow shadow box of stuff like that. They're kind of fun. I'm assuming some kind of pattern was in this because it says Home Decorative Company. But all right, more needle books. Sweetheart and Sewing Susan. These are like a dime a dozen. People always try to sell them, and it's like, those aren't worth a whole lot. Shade pulls. I remember my mother having these very kind of things. You tap that little plastic thumbtack into the end of that into your shade, your window shade. Elastic cord. I always find elastic cord in sewing baskets, and I'm never really sure, like, what was it used for? Like, this is fairly heavy. Yeah. I mean, you can see that. I don't know what you... And it's rayon rubber. I don't know. Merchants Trust and Savings Bank. Oh, my goodness. Okay. This is actually pretty fancy. There's a lot of needles in there. Making piping. Oh, button loops. Yeah, I think button loops make sense. Quiltish, yeah. Piping, I do know they made piping with like a cord. It would have been heavier than this stuff. Yeah, the home upholstery stuff was they had a lot of complex stuff, like probably more than we have today, I think, for making that kind of stuff. But this is a nice little book. I mean, it's like a book. It's padded. It's like faux leather. Okay. More pins, hair pins. Gala curler set. I guess there was something there. Oh, let's see. Happy Home. I don't think I've seen this one before. Justice for the Deaf. Okay. So this must be some kind of giveaway or fundraising thing. You've got the alphabet, the sign language alphabet, deaf mute alphabet. Well, that's that's a bit. Well, it was the National Deaf Mute Sales Company. Well, that's some outdated language there. Okay, lots of buttons. And more hair combs. Oh, and another curtain tie back. That one's pretty neat. Let's see. So buttons. Oh, these are neat. These are like big glass buttons. They're heavy. Got lots of mending cotton. This is a buckle and button set. Oh, here's another tape measure. Now, these nice button sets are something that I have had on my website to sell in the past because I'm not sure what the sailboat is for. It looks like a pin that might have broken. It's a plastic sailboat. But yeah, I had some of these on my website because, you know, they're coat buttons and things. I know there's a lot of people that do kind of archival sewing, or they make reproduction like costuming or fashion. Okay, what is this? Made in Sweden. Trinol. I have no idea what that is saying. I know I can get out my... Oh, what is this? What in the world is this? I mean, there's like a needle and thread here on this. Okay, I think I'm going to have to use the... Oh, it's a needle threader. What a bizarre looking thing, but I think it's a needle threader. I'll have to get out my Google Translate later, but yeah, I don't know if you can see these little, put that under the, let me turn this. If you can see these instructions here, it's all in Swedish, but you get the gist of what's happening with putting the needle and the thread in there, and then so I guess the needle goes in there, and then there's a little slot like thing that I guess the thread, you put the thread down and then you push this together. There's like a spring in there. Well, I'll have to try that later. But look how this thing is packaged. It's like in a little, it's a wooden tube and then it has this paper packaging around, or paper label around it. Very cool. I have a few items in my collection that are from either Europe or I have one. I can't remember if it's Russian or Ukrainian. I think it's Russian. It's a stocking darner. Baseball card envelope. Yeah. You know what I do? And yeah, to protect it would be good. What I do to flatten stuff a lot of times is put it underneath my cutting mat, between my cutting mat and the table, because you know it's protected by the cutting mat, and it'll eventually flatten out. All right, more mending wool. Oh, these are some pretty old buttons. And they're not coming through particularly well. Yeah. But those are pretty old, especially this one right here. I knew that to be like Victorian era. Yeah, you know, I like to make things better than I found them. So, oh, look at this. A little crocheted hat. I'm wondering if this was supposed to be, well, I don't know. It could have been for a doll or something. But I feel like it probably had a purpose to go on something. Yeah, you know, some things I like to keep them, you know, the way that I found them. But some other things, sometimes just study them, you do want to, I guess that's what that's for. You want to be able to kind of take them apart and read it. And yeah, that thing, that needle threader, I want to scan it. So it would be good to do that. So this would be a tea infuser that was being sold for $8. Um, I don't think this is particularly new. I mean, particularly old. It's fairly new, but isn't that cute? I don't know if you've ever seen one of those. But it's shaped like a teapot, and then I'm guessing this is its little tray to set it on. Yet another thing that tells me this is kind of a, oh my goodness, look at this. A rhinestone headband. Obviously for a child, because I don't think my head would fit in that. Or for a tiny headed woman. But it's rhinestone, one of those rhinestone bracelet type things that's been welded down to the metal. Okay. Let's see. Here's some knitting needles, double pointed knitting needles. And then here's some knitting, what do you call these? Markers, I guess. Ah, look at this. Isn't that cute? It's a little needle book. I bought one of these not long ago at an antique store. My mom borrowed it because she wanted to pattern it. Isn't that cute? Adorable. That will go in my collection for sure. Here's a pin keep that is missing the front, and I bet this is the Mutual of Prudential. So the front of it is missing. So now we know what's inside of those. It feels like some kind of nasty pressed wool and I don't know what, paper fiber, I guess. These pin keeps. I'll have to tear that open and take a better look at it. So these things, I don't know if you've ever seen these things. I find these all the time. They are stocking mending kits. And what it is, I think my mom said she had something like this when she was in high school, but you've got the threads for mending, but then you have these little things. They look like matches, and they're tipped with some kind of chemical. And I think what you did was you wet it, and whatever that stuff was would, you'd wet it, and whatever that is would dissolve a little bit, and then you could dab it on the run in your stocking. And then, so it wouldn't run any further, and then you could use the thread to mend them. I have a ton of these. I don't know. I'm guessing they were something that either, well, I think a lot of times they were giveaways. I remember seeing, a lot of marketing things printed on them. So I guess they were kind of like the little sewing kits that got given away. So more wool. Stock briquettes. So another needle book. This looks like literal charcoal briquettes. The perfect fuel for heating any heating plant. I guess this was when people were shoveling coal into their coal burning heaters. This one's interesting. What is this? Pay as you wear. Oh. $1 or $2 a week will do. New spring clothes for entire family on easy payments. Dress up now, dress up on credit. Oh, okay. So it's a needle book. I can feel the needles in there. So apparently this was, well, I guess it's on credit. It's not layaway, because if it's letting you wear them now. Oh, this looks like it's double packaged. Let me see if I can open it. Oh, look. Free. This coupon is worth $1.50 on any purchase $15 or over. Tear it off. Bring it in now. Oh, the marketing campaigns. I guess these are, what are these? Doily pins. Did you guys know that was a thing? I can't say that I knew what a doily pin was. Well, look at that. So I'm guessing this is when you put your doily, your what is it, anti-macassar over the back of the chair or on the arm of the chair. Then you would use this little pin to stab it in there and keep it there. And they're kind of pretty. I don't know if you can see that. It's got like a little bit of embossing on it. Interesting. See, you learn things, right? Yeah, I've never seen anything like that. Of course, I'm not hanging out in houses that have doilies on the furniture anymore. Maybe when I was a child, but all right, more needle books. Yeah, I think I have one like that. Oh, here's more monograms. Fascinating. I'm so interested in these. These are, again, they're not something that I'm familiar with. All these little paper patterns. Here are red post buttons. What does that say? Poster landette, red Pokafor? I don't know. They look like the little tiny buttons that are, well, tiny versions of like some kind of monogram buttons, but these must have some kind of purpose. I'll have to look that up and see, unless somebody wants to look that up. I realize I didn't. So, Mara, we have an antique sofa that needs to be reupholstered and needs an antimacassar. Now you could start researching doily pins. There you go. So not only will people not be getting their hair grease and their dirty hands on your upholstery, but you'll be able to find the doily pins. Yeah, I'll have to check and see what those are. Don't you get away. Oh. Well, this is interesting. This is a Broadway imported needles. I feel like this is like maybe an earlier version of some of those older ones. I mean, older ones. The newer ones. The happy home ladies. What did I do with them? I can't find them in this pile now. Oh, well. Anyway, I had something similar like to that in my... Oh, look at this. These are fun. These are French label ribbons or French ribbons. I have a few. I have one I think that's got like an umbrella or a poodle or something like that. I don't think they're terribly old, but I have seen stuff like this in crazy quilts. So I think some of these might be silk, and they're ribbons. They would come out of like an embroidery machine, like all connected, and then they just cut them apart for ribbons. This has metallics in it, which are probably is mid 20th century, I guess, because I think those metallics would be like mylar. They're plastic involved, so probably 60s or 70s maybe, but I don't know. I think some of these you can find that are silk. And, might be older. Here we have seam binding, rayon taffeta seam binding in pink. I think I have some in like a very ugly brown, so this is kind of cool. This is pretty early seam binding. I don't see. Okay, walls. So I'm assuming that's a store. I don't see a lot of this kind of seam binding. I usually see the Dritz, that comes on the card. So I think this might be older. Here's another one of those measuring tapes. Let's see. This last thing. Oh, this is a really cool buckle. I have a huge pile of these buckles. I sort of accumulate them. A lot of times they're made out of like Bakelite, early plastics. Let's see. This is another one of those Putnam dies. It's empty. Here is a package of needles. What is this? Hold Bob hairpins. Okay. There's a little tiny box of hairpins. Oh, these are legit hairpins, not bobby pins, but the The wide ones that you jam into your hairstyle. Oh. And one of these, my grandmother used these, and I know it's not coming up very well on the camera, but it's pink and it's plastic. And you know, you'd roll your hair up in the curler, and then you'd jab this through the middle of the curler. So I have some of my grandmother's. And then this is just a little mending kit. Yes, a curler pin. And there's some random needles down in here. And this must have come out of one of the needle books. It's the anti-tarnish thing. Okay, so here's the last, oh, yeah, okay. Here's the last thing. I know that there's a random mishmash of stuff in here, including some of the flatware that may have come out of. Yes, good for stuffing little tiny things. Also good for poking a hole through thin, lighter weight things. And also I've used them like in knitting when you need to take like transfer a few stitches, and I didn't have you know, one of the actual knitting apparatuses for that. All right, so this is a lot of stuff. So we've got some double pointed knitting needles. These are heavy too. They're big and heavy. Here is a latch hook. This one is made in Taiwan, so it is not particularly old, and they were selling it for $6. A bunch of random emery boards, kind of yucky. Oh, these hairpins, I have a few of my great-grandmother's, and this one's plastic, and I think the ones of my great-grandmother's were plastic too, but I do know you can find these sometimes that are made out of like tortoise shell or horn, and I've always wanted to stumble across one of those. These are plastic though. Ye old button hook for a shoe. The shoe button hook. Another button hook. Another latch hook. These are little hair bows. Oh, how cute. Okay, I might have to actually use these. They're little metal bows on a bobby pin. Those will be going in Cake's hair very soon. Oh my gosh. You guys know what that is? That, I believe, is an ear spoon. So, or it could be one of those pimple poppers. But the fact that it's like a curved little cup, so I guess you can use it as like a, well, it's got a hole in it. But yes, an ear spoon is my other guess. For scooping the junk out of your ears before. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So before Q-tips, one might scrape the insides of one's ears. Gross. Now I have one. Here's some more button hooks. Those. More emery boards. Oh my gosh, 1,000,001 button hooks. Here's some fun curlers. I've used it for glitter. Well, the problem with using it for glitter is it does have a hole in it. So, I can never get centered. Can you see? It's got a hole in it. It's like a little tiny spoon with a hole. Yes, home perms. That's what I was going to say. Like perm rods. What, like 50s, 60s? I mean, these are aluminum. I don't know when they came out with home perm stuff. Here's another one of those little hairpins for blonde hair. Here are a whole bunch of, I guess, well, that's a two-prong. What on earth are these for? I was thinking that these were for carving under your fingernails and getting the dirt out, but no, they're like a two-prong thing. What would these be for, you guys? I mean, it's obviously from a manicure set, but why would it be like a two... Can you see that? It's got like a little cuticle trimmer. Yeah? Okay. Oh, well, look at that. It's a broken off straight razor. But look at this handle. That is very interesting. It's somebody has scratched what I'm guessing are initials in it. But this part is very pretty. Oh, I wondered if this is what I thought it was. So this, I think this is probably like what, for pushing your cuticles back. It's one of those little, but this has, I can get it out. I have something like this. It's got like a little, like tweezery things in it. These look like they're just little sharp things, but this is made out of bone. So this is, I don't know what all of these little pointy things would be other than just for scraping stuff out of your fingernails. But I mean, they've got to be, because I'm pretty sure that's a cuticle pusher. But what a charming thing, right? You know, that it's bone and then it's got like a little brass pin in there to hold these pieces. Another perm rod. Oh, what is this? Walk over polish and laces. Walk over shoes. I guess this is also a button hook, but it's nice and heavy. Oh, so many button hooks. Ah. Oh, okay, this one's got to be an ear spoon. This one does not have a hole in it. This would be perfect for glitter. With this beautiful like Bakelite handle. Another hairpin. Another latch hook. Some more button hooks. There's a whole bunch of little barrettes. These are fun. I actually have a diamond or a rhinestone one like that already, but maybe that'll be its pair. Oh, this is cute. Look at this little clip, little hair clip. Okay, now we're getting into gross fingernail implements. Oh, so many. And this, I guess, was some kind of sharp thing that's been broken off. Nail file. Oh, that's a cuticle thing. Button hook, but oh my god, this is an endless amount of button hooks. There's more of them. Ah! Oh, look at this teeny one. Yeah, this must have been somebody's entire life's collection of button hooks. Oh, that's interesting. That's a really old nail clippers. Oh, this is pretty. This is Souvenir of Florida. It's like a big goofy crochet hook with a little palm tree painted on it. Cake's new button hook collection. Exactly. You know, and it's funny, you do often find button hooks in, like, I think probably every single sewing basket I've ever bought has had button hooks in it. I mean, these are, oh gosh, there's so many of them. I'm going to have to make a piece of artwork with button hooks. Oh, this is a tiny paintbrush. Or maybe it's a makeup brush. Avon. Yeah, eye makeup brush. An Avon eye makeup brush. Yeah, well, that is it. A million button hooks. And a bunch of other cool stuff. So I'm going to call this one a big giant yes. This was a really good lot. I got a lot of cool stuff in here. Things that will definitely go in my collection. Things I have to figure out anybody wants to make an offer for, I don't know, 100 button hooks. I don't know. Anybody has any purpose for a million button hooks, you know where to find me. Oh, yay. I'm glad you think this is fun, you guys. I was worried. I'm like, would this be boring? Is this the kind of stuff where people be like, Cake, I don't care what's in your stupid box of crap. But I'm glad that you guys enjoy seeing these things. I know it's fun. I always think it's fun to window shop when people have things to show. Because, you know, like I said, you learn stuff. We now know that there are doily pins are a thing. We now know that I need to make some sort of piece of artwork with some weird stuff. I do want to put the call out there. I know some of our friends don't watch live because of the time that I stream, but they do catch up. So I'm curious to know about these. You know, again, they're flannel, they're cut. So, I mean, maybe they came from like a large sampler type of thing. Or I don't know. Maybe they came, I mean, this in theory could have come at the bottom of a cigar box, but I don't know. I feel like everything that I hear about the cigars and the cigarette things, they're small, and I don't know, I can't remember if any of them were made of flannel, so I'll have to wait and see who has what to say about these. I'm quite certain one of our friends knows. So, and I would absolutely love any suggestions about things that I've misidentified. You know, if there's any historical information anybody has for this stuff. So that was exciting. All right, let me go back to me. Okay. So from cigar boxes, yeah. Part of a sack. Yeah, I don't know. You know, so I know I have seen, and in fact, I want to say we might have looked at it recently when I was just starting in my bicentennial research, and I looked up centennial quilts, and I know that because of that centennial exposition, you could buy like novelty fabrics, and I know that there was at least one quilt that had like a bunch of different flags. And so I'm kind of wondering if this is what we're looking at, and, you know, is it something that was like a novelty textile that was available, or, yeah, Quiltish is saying from cigar boxes. So, I mean, did you, Quiltish, I'm assuming you just Googled this. So it's something that comes from the bottom of the cigar box, like it's in there in the bottom of the box. Okay, gotcha. Okay. Yeah, so I'm gonna have to look up more about those, because I have seen these. You know, I've actually, when I was at the Penn Dry Goods show this summer, one of the vendors there, she had like a whole like box of them, you know, individually priced. You know, you could get whatever flag you wanted. And she definitely had them marked as cigar or cigarette things. So, well, good to know. I have 3 big ones. You know, and that's the kind of stuff that, you know, I like to hold on to those things for a while and see if I have a purpose for them. But some of the things, you know, as I'm kind of in a clean out and go through phase right now, which is why I kind of kick myself. Like, when you're cleaning out and reorganizing, why did you buy another box of crap? But I have things that I kind of, you know, I hold on to them for a while, and then I think I'm going to put them in my shop. So, 1910. Well, thank you. So now we've learned what those are. So the flags I have, well, Russia, and then New Zealand and Chile are the other countries. So, well, fun. You know what we still have to do now. Actually, I'm going to leave this here. I'll just lean my arms on it. We have a special chapter to read today, you guys. It's Thanksgiving. Now, I know I've read the Thanksgiving chapter before, but I think that it is well worth another read. I kind of had some ideas for some content I want to make for social media, just some little clips, and I think I'm going to start with Sarah Josepha Hale, because, again, she's my hero. I'm just in love with her. She's so amazing. She makes me feel slightly bad about myself, because, like, she does, you know, in a day what would take me years to do, I think. So, without further ado, as a reminder, we are reading The Lady of Godey's, Sarah Josepha Hale, by Ruth Finley. And we are on chapter 12, which is called Thanksgiving Day. Did Sarah Josepha Hale invent Thanksgiving? No, she did not. But she was very important in why and how we celebrate Thanksgiving now. And I think probably very few people know this history. I certainly was surprised to me. So, chapter 12, Thanksgiving Day. The first president to issue a Thanksgiving Day proclamation was Washington himself in 1789, and the second was Lincoln in 1863. The link between was Sarah Hale. Now remember, Sarah, she loved George Washington. She was super patriotic, and George Washington was like the pinnacle. Since the fall of 1621, when the handful of pilgrims who had escaped the preceding winter's famine appointed a day on which to celebrate the gathering of their first harvest in the New World, many New England communities were wont to hold a festival of Thanksgiving. But it was local rather than a general custom, and no uniformity of date was obtained. Now, I know we probably have some more modern history that, you know, elucidates more about the pilgrims. So, you know, I don't know, you know, in terms of the dates and exactly what we were, you know, what they were doing. I don't know how much research was behind that, but we're going to find out some very cool stuff that is in writing. So we know that this definitely happened with Sarah. For instance, the Long Island Hamptons, east and south towns settled by Connecticut English and not Manhattan Dutch, as was the west end of the island, kept as Thanksgiving. Guys, I can't. I'm going to start that paragraph over. For instance, the Long Island Hamptons, east and south towns settled by Connecticut English and not Manhattan Dutch, as was the west end of the island, kept as Thanksgiving Day the first Thursday after the cattle were driven home from the common pasture at Montauk Point. As the return of the cattle was fixed annually by the town fathers sitting in solemn conclave, the date varied according to the season. If an early winter was portended, the cattle and their herdsmen were recalled sooner. If the fall remained open and Indian summer lingered, the cattle stayed at the point late. But either case, the coming of the herd, winding slowly across the downs, set the date for Thanksgiving. And when Governor John Jay of New York attempted to establish a statewide Thanksgiving Day in 1795, this was the snag he tripped over. Each community wanted to keep the day as suited its own convenience or tradition. And as none was willing to compromise, it was agree to disagree. Though it was not until 1846 that Mrs. Hale began in Godey's her definite campaign to last 17 years. If you remember, she campaigned for a lot of stuff. She, you know, we kind of learned like her Civil War stance was not terribly popular, but, you know, she didn't give up. This lady kept on. She had her, I just picture she had at her desk maybe a little Rolodex of here's all of the things I'm working towards, and one day these men are going to get with the program, and then I can take that card out and put it in my accomplished file. She was tenacious. So she began in Godey's her definite campaign to last 17 years for the nationalization of the holiday, her first public voicing of the proposal long anticipated that date. Many of her early writings were replete with references to Thanksgiving. In 1827, she was saying, "We have too few holidays." Oh, Hallmark agrees. Thanksgiving, like the 4th of July, should be considered a national festival and observed by all our people as an exponent of our Republican institutions. By 1835, her attitude had become even more significantly social. There is a deep moral influence in these periodical seasons of rejoicing in which whole communities participate. She was really, she really like she got the glue of community. She totally understood that was what kind of brought people together with these kind of things. And they bring out and together, as it were, the best sympathies in our natures. Having reasoned thus far, she ultimately came to see in Thanksgiving not only a day for taking count of benefits and blessings received, but a logical bond of union. This viewpoint was not wholly her own. It had been Washington's too. When in 1870 she was trying, out of fear that the then only 7-year-old precedent of an annual presidential proclamation might be sometime set aside, to induce Congress to establish the last Thursday in November as a federally legalized holiday, she quoted Washington's proclamation as the basis of her argument. And this is what Washington had to say. Whereas it is the duty of all nations to acknowledge the providence of Almighty God, and whereas both houses of Congress have requested me to recommend to the people of the United States a day of thanksgiving and prayer. Now, therefore, I do recommend and assign Thursday the 26th of November next to the service of the great and glorious being, that we then all may unite in rendering unto him our humble thanks for his kind care and protection of this country previous to its becoming a nation, for the favorable interposition of his providence in the course and conclusion of the late war, for the great degree of tranquility, union, and plenty which we have since enjoyed, for the peaceable and rational manner in which we have enabled and to establish constitutions of government, for the civil and religious liberty for which we are blessed, and also that we may then unite and beseech him to promote virtue, knowledge, and the increase of science among us. It was a stirring proclamation. Obviously, Sarah loved this. Sarah Hale made it her creed: union, civil and religious liberty, virtue, knowledge, and the increase of science. You know, I think I said this on Monday. Sarah Hale, she would have done just fine today. Now, would a cell phone not blow her mind? I'm sure it would. Would cars make her, scare her? Probably. But, her stance, I think, on community and people, I think she would have gotten along just fine today and been line in the sand, power to the people kind of lady. In the midst, then, of her anxiety of the 40s and the 50s for the safety of that union, she advocated the nationalizing of Thanksgiving Day as one more means of drawing the sympathies of the country together. Year after year, from 1846 on, she importuned the governors of states and territories and influential persons everywhere to join in establishing Washington's choice, the last Thursday in November, as a universal holiday. Some of the states, like her own New Hampshire, already kept Thanksgiving, though the day varied. She was faced with much of the same problem as had been Governor Jay, only on a larger scale. We have received letters approving this Union Festival from the governors of nearly every state and territory, she would announce in June or July of every year, and from then until November, her efforts would be bent on the delinquents. This meant personal letters in addition to her ladies' book editorials. Literally thousands of letters she wrote in behalf of Thanksgiving, a colossal task when it is remembered that she penned all of them in her own hand. She must have had really strong fingers and wrists because she wrote so many letters. When her correspondence was gone over and sorted in 1916, the bulk of it being then burned, were found innumerable replies to her Thanksgiving letters. A few, those signed with nationally prominent names, were saved. Meantime, the idea was kept alive in the pages of the Ladies' Book. By 1852, she was able to announce the following: last year, 29 states and all territories united in the festival. This year, we trust that Virginia and Vermont will come into this arrangement. So she's shaming some states. They were the only states that had refused. And that the governors of each and all the states will appoint Thursday, the 25th of November, as the day of Thanksgiving. 23 millions of people sitting down, as it were, together to a feast of joy and thankfulness. And then within about 12 to 24 hours, they will go to Black Friday sales. I don't think that Sarah had that in mind. 23 million Americans in 1852, a far cry from the now when Thanksgiving is kept in 23 million American homes. But what feasts they had, the earlier 23 millions. Toothsome indeed were the dainties of the ladies' book cookery department suggested for Thanksgiving Day. Oysters etiquette. Could anything have been more fitting for the Victorian century? Lafayette ducks with snowballs, the latter made from boiled rice, raisins, and coffee, sugar. I wonder if that means coffee and sugar. I don't know. It sounds awful. Suji, and that's spelled Soodjee, which is a fish delicacy. Ham soaked in cider for 3 weeks, stuffed with sweet potatoes, and baked in maple syrup. That sounds kind of good. I don't know about soaked in cider for 3 weeks, but... Indian pudding and frumenty sauce. The list went on to Epicurean length. The lady editor knew good food and how to prepare it. Her recipes and Godey's and her own several cookbooks were far more practical, being far less casual than others of her times. Her instructions seldom read, take some of this, a little of that, and enough of the other. She had been a competent New England housewife before she was an editor. Yeah, for like 5 minutes, because as soon as her husband died, she was like skyrocketing off to like incredible feats. But yes, she was a housewife for a few minutes. No shade on Sarah. I totally believe she could do all of these things. In Northwood, which remember was her book, she gave a whole chapter just to the Thanksgiving dinner, set forth in the parlor, which being the best room and ornamented with the best furniture, was seldom used except on important occasions. And if the importance of the occasion may be judged by the length of the menu as detailed by her in 1827, it was equal to modern Christmas, New Year's, and Thanksgiving all rolled into one. Yet there were 2 things in the midst of this overbounty that have remained without change. The roasted turkey took precedence, says Northwood, sending forth the rich odor of its savory stuffing, while pumpkin pie was an indispensable part of a good and true Yankee Thanksgiving. Maybe Americans have not changed so fundamentally after all. This to me is just so incredible because this is 1931 that Ruth Finley is saying this. So 1931, absolutely, roast turkey and pumpkin pie. And here we are in 2024. And for those of you in the U.S. who are planning to have anything but turkey and pumpkin pie on Thanksgiving, you're probably an anomaly. I think whether you go out and get yourself a Stouffer's turkey TV dinner, which I have threatened to do, or you're making some big elaborate, meal, or, I think we're probably planning to have Thanksgiving just at my mom's house, just with the few of us. And so we'll just do turkey breast, not a whole turkey. But I mean, most people, unless you've got some different plans, are going to have some turkey and pumpkin pie. And I mean, we're talking like 200 years practically. I think Sarah Hale would be very, very pleased. But though Sarah Hale never discounted the value of material manifestations, it was her belief in the spiritual efficacy of Thanksgiving as related to the preservation of the Union that urged her on. Ham, turkey, sometimes brisket or pot roast. Yeah, my family would sometimes do some ham in there, but like the turkey is a non-negotiable. And I'll be honest, I don't love turkey. I like it fresh and hot, right out of the oven, a little crispy skin, some gravy. But reheated poultry, I do not love. And so once turkey has to be reheated, I might eat a sandwich the next day. But anything that involves reheating turkey, I'm like, ooh, no, thank you. And turkey lunch meat, I'm on the fence about. So, yeah, I'm one of those. I think a lot of people don't particularly share my opinion, but Thanksgiving and like maybe Christmas are probably the only times that I really would eat turkey. So my mother takes what she can get. Strange that she, a woman, should have foreseen the inevitability of war when wise men scoffed. Remember, she saw the Civil War coming and she was like... But she was no alarmist. At least she could try every preventative measure. Even in 1859, she still hoped a nationalized Thanksgiving might help to avert disunion. So she's actually like trying to make Thanksgiving like a, hey, let's not fight, y'all. Let's just have Thanksgiving, right? Not a fan of poultry. Yeah, yeah. In a pot pie, I get it's okay in a pot pie if you got lots of gravy and other vegetables. I would make a very bad, I don't know, subsistence eater. I think that, I would be the one that they would just murder and eat first because I'd be like, ooh, is turkey all we have? If there was if we were in some dystopian future when all that was left was Thanksgiving food. All right. So 1859. I'd go in the stew. Exactly. They're like, you're a pudgy lady and you're complaining about the last little bit of food we got. You're going right in there with the rest of the stuff. So 1859, she's hoping for Thanksgiving. That year, her Thanksgiving editorial, printed in the Lady's Book for November, was headed Our Thanksgiving Union. It read as follows. 70 years ago, the political union of the United States was consummated. In 1789, the 13 original states, then forming the American Confederacy, became, by the ratification of the Constitution, the United American Nation. The flag of our country now numbers 32 stars on its crown of blue, and some half dozen or more additional stars are shining out of the depths of our wilderness continent, soon to be added to our systems of independent but united government of the people. God save the United States. He was saved, enlarged, blessed, and prospered us beyond any people on this globe. If every state would join in Union Thanksgiving on the 24th of this month, would it not be a renewed pledge of love and loyalty to the Constitution of the United States, which guarantees peace, prosperity, progress, and perpetuity to our great republic? The next year, 1860, she called the roll of the states. Alabama, Arkansas, California. But there were gaps then. No Arizona, no Colorado, no West Virginia. In all 15, less than the familiar roll drawled over the radio during the presidential conventions of 1924 and 1928. Could 1861 and 1865 have happened had there been a radio then, this increase of science among us? But by November 1860, there was no stemming the flood. Before another Thanksgiving season came round, civil conflict engulfed the land. It was the war-red year of 1861. The lady editor begged for a Thanksgiving Day of peace, pleading that we lay aside our enmities and strifes on this one day. She failed. Yet half a century later, a world at war did just this, keeping the Christmas armistice. It was in 1863 that she was accomplished her great end. All the letters she had written from 1850 on to each of the presidents, recalling the example set by Washington, were at last to bear fruit. Thanksgiving letters from Fillmore, Pierce, and Buchanan, in reply to communications from her, were sold in the Hale correspondence sale. So were letters on the same subject from President Grant and his Secretary of State, Hamilton Fish, and from Seward, Secretary of State under Lincoln. But who bought them? Even the gallery handling the sale does not know. I wonder if they know where they are now. That might be worth a look. I forgot about that when I read this before. At the time of a business consolidation and removal to new quarters subsequent to 1917, the year of the sale, the Hale sale, several books of the gallery's sales records were misplaced, including the Hale records. A few copies of the catalog remain, preserving a list of the letters sold. And in that list, among several from Secretary Seward, is one described as referring to Mrs. Hale's suggestion for a national Thanksgiving and dated September 29th, 1863, with this fragment quoted. I have received your interesting letter and have commended the same to the consideration of the President. But it is probable that she already had been to Washington and had been granted a personal interview with Lincoln. Mr. Charles B. Hale, son of Horatio Hale, in reply to a query on this point, writes, I remember my father saying that his mother, so this is her grandson, saying that his mother had visited President Lincoln and had found him a very kindly and interested gentleman. Further than this, Mr. Hale declines to trust his memory. He can give no specific details. However, such an interview could have been most simply arranged. Not only was Lincoln easy of approach, and certainly the editor of so important a magazine as Godey's could, in her official capacity, have gained an audience. But Mrs. Hale was in a position to bring to bear an unusually close personal tie. Major General David Hunter, elder brother of the husband of Mrs. Hale's daughter, Frances Anne, was a close personal and political friend of President Lincoln. So it's nice when your son-in-law knows, or your son-in-law's brother is friends with the president. It was a friendship of long standing. Hunter, at that time a major, had been a member of the party that accompanied Lincoln on the roundabout journey from Springfield to his first inauguration. In Buffalo, while shielding the president-elect from the pressure of over-enthusiastic crowds, Major Hunter had suffered a broken arm. I forgot about this, too. At the First Battle of Bull Run, it was Hunter's regiment, he was a colonel by then, that shared with Heintzelman's the early brunt of the attack on the Warrenton Pike. Warrenton is actually pretty close to where I grew up. So it's always interesting when I read this kind of stuff in books. I'm like, oh, I know where that is. 6 degrees of President Lincoln, exactly. It was Hunter Lincoln sent to supersede Fremont when that general was relieved of his command of the Department of the West. Finally, it was Hunter whose premature Emancipation Proclamation, issued as commander of the Department of the South, Lincoln forgave. Slavery and martial law in a free country are altogether incompatible. The persons in these 3 states, Georgia, Florida, and South Carolina, heretofore held as slaves, are therefore declared forever free. A note from General Hunter would have opened all the doors of the White House to Mrs. Hale. She could have had it for the asking. She may have had it, and she may not. In any event, President Lincoln recognized the truth of these ideas concerning the nationalization of Thanksgiving as soon as they were presented to him. Mrs. Hale later wrote in the lady's book, when reminding the reunited nation and President Johnson of the very special reason for keeping a national Thanksgiving Day in 1865. His, meaning Lincoln's, reply to our appeal was a proclamation appointing the last Thursday in November, 1863, as a day of national Thanksgiving. It is significant, too, that in 1863, Mrs. Hale ran her annual Thanksgiving editorial in September and for the first time publicly suggested a presidential proclamation rather than a mere concurrence of the states. Indications that when the magazine was made up in July, she not only had hopes of success, but was paving the way for the new precedent about to be set. Would it not be better, she had concluded then, that the proclamation that appoints Thursday the 26th of November, 1863, as the day of Thanksgiving for the people of the United States of America should, in the first instance, emanate from the President of the Republic, to be applied by the governors of each and every state, in acquiescence with the chief executive advisor. So she's like, look, governors, I'm tired of waiting on you. I got a friend who knows Lincoln. So she's like, I'm going over your heads, and Lincoln's going to make you do it. On October 3rd, 1863, only 4 days after the date of Secretary Seward's letter to her, Abraham Lincoln issued what was the first national Thanksgiving proclamation since the day of Washington. And this is what he says. The year that is drawing to close has been filled with the blessings of fruitful fields and healthful skies. To these bounties, which are so constantly enjoyed that we are prone to forget the source from which they come, others have been added which are of so extraordinary a nature that they cannot fail to penetrate and soften the heart which is habitually insensible to the ever watchful providence of Almighty God. In the midst of a civil war of unequaled magnitude and severity, which has sometimes seemed to foreign states to invite and provoke their aggression, peace has been preserved with all nations, order has been maintained, and the laws have been respected and obeyed, and harmony has prevailed everywhere except in the field of military conflict. While that theater has been greatly contracted by the advancing armies of the Union. Needful diversions of wealth and of strength from the fields of peaceful industry to the national defense have not arrested the plow, the shuttle, or the ship. The axe has enlarged the borders of our settlements, and the mines, as well of coal and iron, of iron and coal, as of the precious metals, have yielded more abundantly than heretofore. Population has steadily increased, notwithstanding the waste that has been made in the camp, the siege, and the battlefield, and the country, rejoicing in the consciousness of augmented strength and vigor, is permitted to expect continuance of years with large increase of freedom. No human counsel hath devised, nor hath any mortal hand worked out these great things. They are the gracious gifts of the Most High God, who, while dealing with us in anger for our sins, hath nevertheless remembered us in mercy. It has seemed to me fit and proper that they should be solemnly, reverently, and gratefully acknowledged as with one heart and one voice by the whole American people. I do, therefore, invite my fellow citizens in every part of the United States, and also those who are at sea or who are sojourning in foreign lands, to set apart and observe the last Thursday of November next as a day of thanksgiving and praise to our beneficent Father who dwelleth in the heavens. And I recommend to them that while offering us the ascriptions justly due to him for such singular deliverance and blessings, they do also with humble penitence for our natural perverseness and disobedience command to his tender care all those who have become widows, orphans, mourners, or sufferers in the lamentable civil strife in which we are unavoidably engaged, and fervently employ the interposition of the Almighty hand to heal the wounds of the nation, to the full enjoyment of peace, harmony, tranquility, and union. Lincoln loved a run-on sentence, just like Ruth Finley. And from that day to this and forever, the Chief Executive of the United States has proclaimed, or shall proclaim, the last Thursday of each November a National Thanksgiving Day. But the giver of this day to the country was Sarah Josepha Hale. I love that story. I always like to say, Sarah Hale invented Thanksgiving. She didn't. But, 17 years she went after governors and, the presidents to get her, her idea to come to fruition. I think that's amazing. I mean, how many people would keep going? I know lots of people that kind of have like a singular focus that they will go after, year after year after year, but just like she did this with everything. What tenaciousness. Our next chapter, chapter 13, is going to be about the first college for women. And so that's Vassar. So that will be definitely interesting because, she was, I'm trying to think, she was friends. I think she was friends with the people, and then she helped begin the college, I believe. So yeah, I know, Druid. I'm just joking. Harvest festivals, I know. Honestly, isn't that what Christmas is a little bit about? Some of the festivals of, the non-Christians, that kind of stuff was incorporated to get people, to observe Christian things, using those older kinds of festivals and traditions. That's how they incorporated that stuff. It got people to comply. So I recognize these things, but I just love the idea that, we wouldn't have Thanksgiving if it wasn't for her. Lincoln thought it was a good idea. Lincoln didn't come up with it. So very cool. And I mean, really, I know even today, certainly communities do have, their special celebrations. I mean, where I live, we have the Reisterstown Festival. That's every year in September to celebrate this little town I live in. And, certainly lots of little towns have that. But I don't know. I can't imagine Baltimore having Thanksgiving, on one day and maybe other cities and states having it on a different day. I just don't we just don't have things like that happening, because we're not, certainly there's still lots of agriculture going on, but I don't think, we don't look at that as yay, the harvest, because I think so much of even agriculture today is so industrialized. People don't look at it the same way. They don't have that sense of the seasonal, whatever. One last anecdote. I was searching for something that I want to get my husband for Christmas. It's a very tiny little thing. It's something that he loves. And I know he's never going to watch this, but I'm not going to say I don't know what it is, just in case. It's just a tiny, very insignificant item, and I've had the hardest time finding it. And I found a place. The place is called At Home. I don't have one close to me, but I knew I was going to be passing one on my way to and from the quilt study yesterday on the Eastern Shore. So it's this, I think they call themselves the home decor superstore. And it's got a lot of stuff that kind of reminds me of no craft things, but all the home decor stuff that you might find at, say, Hobby Lobby or Michael's, like baskets and that kind of stuff. And I think they have across the back they had home and kitchen stuff. I'm trying to think. It was just kind of what you would imagine, a home store, that kind of thing. So I went in there and I couldn't right away find what I was looking for, and I kept thinking, I bet they're not going to have it because it was a clearance item. Well, anyway, this lovely woman, I think she might have been the shift manager or whatever. She helped me. She was fantastic. Should have gotten her name so I could write a letter to the company, because that doesn't happen enough. People always want to complain, but nobody ever wants to be I had great service. I want to shout about that. So anyway, she helped me find what I wanted. And then I was I saw a couple of interesting things. I'm going to, look around a little more. So, I had said to her, I'm not even ready for Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving on the brain. I'm not even ready for Halloween. My brain is thinking, Halloween's coming up. I am certainly not ready for Christmas, but oh my gosh, you guys, every aisle was full of Christmas. It's October 20 something. What? Are you kidding me? It was insane. Oh gosh, Druid, yes. So certain scents and flavors play a role in seasonal transition. Yes. Cinnamon, sage. Yeah, these are the things. Pumpkin spice. How many people, whether you like it or not, can you walk into a place and smell that pumpkin spice smell, that cinnamon, nutmeg, allspice smell, and not think, it's fall? Absolutely. Yes, Maro Dem, I agree. It was really cool when people would do things like decorate their tree, at the beginning of December, and not think about starting their shopping until the day after Thanksgiving. When I was in retail, we would use our Halloween night. So I would work overnight on Halloween, and we would do the switch from Halloween merchandise and then put up the Christmas trees and all that stuff. I always thought that was way too early, but people like to get a start. This young lady at the At Home store, she said, oh my God, because I said, not ready for Christmas. And she turned and looked at me and she goes, girl, there are people that come in here the minute we start putting the stuff out, which was obvious has been at least through the month of October, and she's like, they come in and they're like, oh, we're so glad you have the Christmas stuff out. We just have like one last thing to get before we're done with our Christmas shopping. And I'm like, what? Who starts their Christmas shopping to be done before Halloween? Like, what? It doesn't, yes, Maro Dim, it doesn't feel special anymore because it's just always there. It's just like a commercial thing, right? You know, back when there was that seasonal, preparation, I mean, there was still the commercial aspect of buying Christmas presents, but it felt like it felt like a ritual. It felt like, okay, the school kids, they transition from pumpkins to turkeys. And then, the holiday type stuff, you feel the end of the year. And where I went to school, we mostly had kids that were Christian. I think we maybe had a handful of Jewish kids that were probably like, whatever. But yeah. All right, Maro Dim, I'm so sorry that I probably just threw shade all over you, but does your family live kind of dispersed? I feel like I kind of understand families that have special traditions like that, where you're kind of celebrating like a Christmas at Thanksgiving. And I do know some people that do that, just because they're scattered, and like Thanksgiving is the time when they can get together and not Christmas. So, okay. So your adult kids can spend time with their in-laws on Christmas. That makes a lot of sense. Now I know when I was a kid, we would flip-flop. We would do Thanksgiving one year with, one set of grandparents, and then Christmas with the other, and vice versa. But I know that can also be challenging. It's like when you're not all living in the same place, I get it. I guess I probably feel this sense of somebody who can be finished with their Christmas shopping before Halloween. Oh, really? Like Thanksgiving and the turkeys and the pilgrims? Thanksgiving decorations are nice. Got like beautiful leaves and acorns and squashes and things. Nice things. But yeah, a person who could brag about being done with their Christmas shopping before Halloween, I feel like they're just making me feel bad about myself. Because although I am not the kind of person to be like trying to buy something on Christmas Eve, I am definitely the kind of person who is trying to quickly finish something I made on Christmas Eve to like give to the person like in an hour. So it's really, the shade I throw is really about me. So all right, guys, I've insulted enough people about their holidays. Let's see what's coming up. I think it's business as usual next week. I'll of course be back on Monday. Jill and I will be here. If you had seasonal decorations, you wouldn't have room for fabric. Yes, a woman after my own heart. My seasonal decorations is very small because, yes, I need the room for fabric. So next week, Jill and I will be continuing with To Honor and Comfort. I'm trying to think. I don't think that there's any major stuff coming up right now. I will be here for Halloween. Double T and I have been working on our Halloween costumes. He's been trying to wear a variety of items. But we will have something good that will incorporate his shell. We'll figure it out. So, I hope you guys have a wonderful afternoon and a fantastic weekend. And I will see you on Monday. Thank you, Jared, my dear. So, take care. Couldn't do it without you, as you know. Mwah! I'll see you soon.
useless to shout. Hear him